Hello friends, we are here for another episode of Clone Wars Conversations, and we're splitting it right up. Well, this is part 3 of season 4, so this is part that this isn't exactly halving or thirding it or anything. We're now splitting up however we fancy it. Should have looked how we're going to do it next episode. I didn't, so I'll have to scramble that near the end. But we are tackling the last 4 episodes of season 4. That's Massacre, Bounty Hunter, Brothers, and Revenge. The Asajj Ventress / Savage Opress / Maul kind of centric arcs in the Clone Wars season 4, kicking things off. And so myself, Dave, and Maff are all going through this journey, watch all the Clone Wars, and Maff has never seen the Clone Wars before, so we are not going to be spoiling anything that happens ahead of this. He has seen all of Rebels, he's seen all the live action stuff, and obviously the movies, but if anyone is questioning why we don't talk about certain things, because we don't want to spoil stuff for Maff. But before we delve in, I was thinking we could quickly do plugs now, and then when we get towards the end, then we can just kind of shut off a bit sooner, because our time is slightly more limited. So I'll just quickly say, I'm Mike of the Genuine Chit-Chat podcast. Find me at Genuine Chit-Chat on any social media website, and also on YouTube and stuff. And also I'm doing weekly Acolyte discussion shows, which I think will be all done by the time this comes out. But if you're watching Acolyte, you want to know our thoughts, Dave was on the premiere, Maff was on the episode 3, and then I've had a variety of different guests on each time. So really, really fun discussing Acolyte and things. But that's myself. Dave, who are you, good sir? People who've been listening should know, but what have you got? What have you been up to pseudo recently? And then we can just delve straight in.
So to be honest, my go-to when someone puts me on the spot and says, plug, talk about plugs, and I'd probably go VHS Strikes Back, and I'd probably go CD Reality Cast. But I was just trying to tot up in my mind there, because obviously, you and I, obviously Maff as well, do this one. But just come out today, mandatory music and CD. So yourself and Tonya Todd, we were covering Rage Against the Machine's self-titled debut album. Acolyte that you've just mentioned there. So what's that, 3 that we've done? And I'm missing, you were on the VHS Strikes Back train spotting episode as well.
I was, yeah, that wasn't too far long ago. And obviously Reality Cast as well. We're on season 1 of that together.
Yeah, the Reality Cast. So that's 5 podcasts you and I have done, Mike. We have a problem.
we do. But yeah, VHS is such a great one. And also, by the time this comes out, my appearance on Back to the Filmography doing Meg 2 The Trench should also be out. So I should put that in the description. But thank you, Dave. And then Maff, you've actually done something that was really cool that I had great fun listening to. You've teased it in the prior episodes of Clone Wars Conversations, and I've already put it in the description of the Clone Wars Conversations I released yesterday, which is season 4 part 1. So we're ahead. We got stuff in the bank, but I put it in the description, but obviously didn't say anything. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it, because you've been teasing us a bit for a while. What's that collaboration with Tony?
With Tony, yeah, we did the Last Ronin, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles story. Go listen to it, because I don't want to spoil anything. Although we do spoil it very quickly anyway, because if you actually read the comic within the first chapter, so to speak, you find out who the Last Ronin is. But it was a lot of fun. To be fair, I think we did discuss it a fair bit, but we chatted over bits and bobs as well in between. It's always fun to talk to Tony, and that he's very enthusiastic, and you kind of feed off that energy, and that it's just an enjoyment to talk to him.
Yeah,
that's good.
I will. Sorry, I just got across. I will just say, I'm thinking back now, because it was a couple of weeks ago I listened. Your story reminded me a bit of mine, because I'm sure I've spoken to Tony as well about this, but I remember specifically going with the class to the local library to pick up a book. Must have been 10, 11 or something like that. And I picked up an Asterix book, and the teacher was like, aren't you a bit old for that? Fuck you, I'm 10. Fucking nearly 50, I'll still read it. But actually, that really stung at the time. I mean, what an absolute douchebag thing to say. It was like literally, in a very polite way, just taking the piss out of you, as a child. So, but I think that's just sort of what it was a bit like, wasn't it? I've put in the past about, 80s parents were a bit shit, but teachers were fucking worse.
Well, it's funny, because I didn't mention it on the podcast, but when I first started to learn when you start learning to draw and write and thing, I was left-handed. But for some reason, I got told I couldn't do that, so I had to I did like the first 6 months or so, and then had to relearn to use my right hand. I'm a
Are
little
you
bit
Catholic?
Well, we are, but
Oh yeah, but it's nothing to do with it. Sorry, just a wild guess there.
I think it. Well, actually, yeah, it would have been a CV school, so maybe that was the reason. But
They do often. There is a line of thinking which is the devil is the left hand and the right hand is the right hand of God.
And I think one of my teachers further down the line said that my brain signals might be getting mixed up, thinking it should be going to the left hand, but I'm actually using my right hand, and it's just all getting kind of muddled up. So, I mean, maybe it was the teachers that broke me.
Well, I would say that with the TMNT Last Ronin pod you did, I've not watched pretty much any of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen bits and pieces of the series. I've not really read any of the comics. Whenever I've delved in, it's just not clicked with me at all. But even then, no interest of TMNT. Really like listening to you guys talk about it is really, really interesting to me. So anyone who is listening, I'll put links in the description, and there will be on the prior episodes of Clone Wars Conversations. But really check it out because it's such a good conversation, especially as someone who I couldn't even name all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I always get like 2 or 3, and I'm like, I can't remember. I don't know the different personalities. I know very, very little about them. So it was really cool hearing your comic origin story, but also hearing you guys talk with such passion about something that I'm like, I don't even know about it, and it was entertaining. So it's a great thing. And I will also say, yes, mandatory music and CD, Rage, that was great. But I mentioned the Meg 2, Trench, it came out today. So it's actually, as of recording this. Right. So there we go. I just glanced, I was like, I feel like there's something else I guested on that I saw on my podcast player this morning, and I was like, there it is. There it is.
Get it all there's no more Fast and Furious to cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't seen you skipped over all the best ones as well. That's the funny thing. All the best ones are sort of 4 to 8.
Right,
so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I'd say are probably my favourites of them. I've seen up to 8. But we've done all the plugs. Now we can get straight in to the Clone Wars Conversations to the final minute. We won't quite do that to you, Dave, but we'll delve in. So we've got 3 sort of main characters that are kind of focused on here. It's Asajj Ventress for the first 2 episodes, and then the 3rd episode's more Savage, and then it kind of turns into Maul, and then the final episode is Maul and Savage. So before we delve into these episodes in particular, I've got 1 or 2 questions for you guys that I want to ask about. Now, because we've got a bit more time, we can delve in a bit more. So Darth Maul, which obviously when we meet him in Rebels, he doesn't call himself Darth anymore, and I think in the Clone Wars he stops calling himself Darth as well because he's no longer aligned with the Sith. But Maff, I want to come to you first, actually. What did you know about Maul's return? Like before we met, before that faithful day, obviously you watch the movies and you go, cool, Maul's dead. He died in Phantom Menace, easy. Then for you, did you hear rumblings he was alive? Did you know anything about Clone Wars or Rebels? Did you then see him come alive in Solo and you were like, what the hell? How is he alive? Then you looked more into it. Tell us a little bit because, obviously I think you watched Rebels because of me. So I'd love to hear about your Maul experience before that.
I think in Solo, because he's like a post-credit.
He's like a cameo, pretty much. He's like one of the very last things Kira talks about.
I remember watching it and thinking, oh, okay. He's grown a bit. So, but that was kind of it then. And it's like, are they going to do something more of him? Is there a bit more there? And then I knew, I think when we were talking, I think I might have mentioned, is Maul in this further down the line in Rebels? And obviously you said, I'm not going to tell you that. But I think at that point, because I'd seen Solo, the cat's out of the bag, I knew he's around. So then it's strange because kind of I've seen the end of Maul, whereas now I'm kind of seeing the rebirth of Maul.
Yeah. The 3 stages of Maul is Phantom Menace and a bit before, Clone Wars Maul, Rebels Maul. We don't know anything in between those gaps, really.
So I knew he was going to turn up. I'm going to keep him powder dry, as Dave's saying.
Do it. That's fine.
I don't want to say anything until we kind of get to them episodes.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I knew he was going to be there at some point. Obviously, I love the fact he's voiced it, and it just fits really well.
Sam Witwer. He's just the best.
As I say, again, it's weird because I know his end, but don't know how he's going to get there. So
There's a lot to go. There's a lot to go.
Interesting thing, and I'm hoping he's going to be kind of to a certain degree the main bad guy going forward, and that because I feel he's the fact that we've only had him a little bit here, but he has more presence than Grievous and Dooku.
100%. 100%. I would just say with Maul and where you see him go, it's very interesting. But when we get to the end of Series 5, I'm going to give you guys some homework, some reading. All thanks to the Clone Wars doing its thing, which is getting cancelled and then coming back for a 7th season, and then there being this gap of content, which is just a couple of things that fill in the gaps. So we'll delve into that. But Dave, with you and Maul, what was your relationship with Maul? Obviously, you saw Phantom Menace like everyone else. Then where does it kind of go from there?
Well, I mean, like a lot of other people at the time, I'm sure I'd talked about this, massively disappointed, even though I came out of the cinema thinking, yeah, that was all right, wasn't it? And then, going through the 7 stages of grief, I think, to get to, no, that was shit. But then thinking, well, Maul was the best thing about it. And the thing is, in the original New Hope that I love so much, the clunky sort of lightsaber fights with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and people are like, oh yeah, well it's because Obi-Wan's old and Darth Vader's more machine than man or whatever. People make excuses for it, but you had fucking Ray Park flipping about. Just the fight scenes were just out of this world, and it was one of those things I could forgive that because it's supposed to be in the past, but everything's better in terms of the choreography and everything. But then, like, they just fucking killed him off, like literally chopped him in half, and then you're like, well, that was a fucking waste, wasn't it? And he doesn't hardly say anything. I might have a few words about the accent, the voice acting and stuff a bit later. But yeah, so you go through that, and then it just becomes, okay, you get over it, and it's like, okay, it is what it is. And then I can't remember where I first, maybe it was Solo for me as well. Possibly it was Solo. I can't remember. I just became aware.
2018, I think, was Solo. 2017, 2018, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think I'd watched Clone Wars by that point. So I think I must have watched Solo and then just being like, the fuck's all that about? Literally cut him in half. This is not a fucking flesh wound,
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about it. I do like, I do like his character and what comes later. But I just think, so X-Men, I'll bring a lot of things back to. They had this character in Giant Size called Thunderbird. And basically he was like a Native American, and the story goes that editorial didn't like the fact that he's just a bit too similar to Wolverine, so they killed him off. But he was a cool character. And then, they kind of brought back, he had a brother who looked almost identical, and is really pissed off because his brother died and whatever. I kind of feel like with Maul, the look of him, you just had to write something like that. Just make it his brother or something. I still can't wrap my head around how someone can be, don't give me the lightsaber crap, literally cut in half, fallen down a fucking shaft, and then, is somehow survived. Somehow Palpatine returned. So yeah, I am not a fan of bringing him back, but whenever I get to that bit, it's just like, okay, right, don't like it, but I can move past it.
It's a weird one because I feel the same. I just think that the prequels, as much as I love Sir Christopher Lee, and Dooku on screen does have presence. I think in the Clone Wars, he's just a bit redundant-ish. He doesn't really have enough to do. But I feel like they basically killed Maul, and then afterwards they were like, oh, fuck, why do we do that? And then they bring in Dooku, who, again, Christopher Lee's amazing. But having Maul there would have more emotional weight. It would, because if he killed Qui-Gon and then Obi-Wan didn't kill him, then what? Or they thought they killed him, and then instead of cutting him in half, he does the same to Darth Maul as does to Qui-Gon. He falls down a pit, and then episode 2, the big reveal of the Sith kind of towards the end, you know, you can have someone like Dooku who's got Obi-Wan in manacles, whatever, but then have the kind of big fight at the end with Maul fighting Yoda and someone else, and have him become the kind of big bad, and then get wiped out, and Anakin kill him. That would have been quite a cool idea. I think that would have worked a bit better. But again, this is one of those things where someone like, I imagine them walking down the road, tripping over, falling on their face, but landing on a winning lottery ticket. That's how I feel about the situation, because you're like, you killing Maul was probably one of the biggest mistakes I think George Lucas did in the original 6. Ignoring, you know, the crap dialogue and points and silly little things, like actual big picture stuff. Killing Maul was stupid. It was a very bad decision. He has 4 minutes of screen time. And again, Ray Parks is so good. Choreography is such a step up. And then they go, oh, how are we going to get him back? And we're like, oh, we're going to have to do the cheesy, you know, oh, he didn't really die. Or how did he survive? We're going to have to loosely explain it. And then they do. And obviously we can't say anything in the Clone Wars because of Maff, and there's a lot to come. But when you see what they achieve with this character in Clone Wars, you go, I thought this show with Krell was already mature. The stuff they do with Maul is just next. So even the dialogue in these episodes, which we'll get to, is so like genuinely like really mature content. And then what they do with him again in Rebels, although he's used quite sparingly in Rebels, he's in most of the best episodes, bar the final season. You know, he's in so many, because the writing around him is so good that because he's not constrained like certain other characters in the franchise, like Palpatine or Anakin, whatever, he can kind of weave in and out, and people are invested into him, and he's got a lot of weight, and you know he's powerful, and he's got all these things which aren't like, if he's so strong, why has no one mentioned him? Like, there's reasons behind it, but that's not because Lucas is a master planner. It's because he was just like, nah, Maul's alive. It was kind of the same thing he said to Filoni, which was like, oh yeah, Anakin's got a Padawan. It's like, but they've never mentioned it. It's never been spoken about. And George Lucas was like, no, Anakin had a Padawan. And that was a discussion when they made Clone Wars. And Filoni was like, I guess he does then. This is Lucas's world. And that's kind of thing with Maul.
The thing with Maul is, I think, obviously, they had to have a bad in Phantom Menace. And you're right, he's only on screen for what, about 4 or 5 minutes. I don't think they expected, because I mean that fight scene, it's like watching ballet. It's, you know, the way that they all move around, and with the music of the Duel of the Fates, it just hit. You know, I think we even said really that the film's okay, but because of Duel of the Fates, everyone goes, oh, it's brilliant. Because of that 4 or 5 minutes of action. They've obviously killed him off thinking, right, here, you know, bad guy of the week kind of thing. That's it. And then this outcry of, he was amazing. It's like, oh, shit. Right, now, obviously, I don't know how he's survived, and that they're going to have to explain it somehow, because at the moment...
what you've got is what we've had in these episodes, that is it.
So he's got spider legs and that's it. Wow.
So, you know, Lucas, he is a genius, right? You can't deny that. But fucking hell, he spectacularly gets it wrong. Can you imagine the like at the table? The thing is, we only see it for a few minutes. That fight scene must have taken like a week to put together. So obviously, the Duel of the Fates music, you know, enhances everything. But that's par for the course for anything Star Wars. Whatever's on screen is made better by the music. You're in a fucking meeting. You're like, no, we're definitely going to kill this fella off because this guy, Jar Jar Binks, is the fucking hero. You know, so let's kill this Maul character off, you know, whatever. I cannot understand how anyone looks at that and doesn't think, oh, this is going to be big. Because you must remember, Maff, the merchandise and everything had quite a lot of Maul.
Megan remembers her first memory of Star Wars is Maul's face on Star Wars logos everywhere. She knew who Maul was before she ever saw any Star Wars.
But I think they kind of showed him as the bad guy because he looked like a bad guy, you know. And maybe they think the heroes kind of saved the day by getting rid of him at the end of the film. We'll move on to the next scene because there's a bigger bad guy to show.
Like Tarkin, maybe, in The New Hope.
But it's, well, yeah, I mean, Tarkin is so good, he's so intelligent, but we only get him for, you know, one film.
Yeah, it's because he didn't. I think it's because the idea of the Emperor hadn't really been formulated. I think,
but then he basically, it was an indie film.
Yeah, it was an indie sci-fi film,
and he didn't expect it to do what it did.
Well, 100%. But what we'll do, There's a lot of Maul stuff there. I just want to get your kind of taste. I'm teasing the audience and yourselves because we're going to loop back round to talk about another interesting character, which is Asajj Ventress. Now, obviously, when you started this journey, you saw the Clone Wars movie and we were like, oh, what do you think of Asajj? And you're like, I don't know. I didn't even really recognize she was of importance. And then season 1, kind of the same. Season 2, you get a little bit more. And then sort of season 3 is when you get a decent amount more of her when eventually she goes to Dathomir and things, because it's mainly in this series from if memory serves, but I'm just double checking my notes. Yeah, so it is season 3. So season 3, the second half kicks off with Nightsisters, Monster, and Witches of the Mist, which is how Savage Opress gets introduced. So what have you found? And regarding the 2 episodes we've got, Massacre and Bounty Hunters, or Bounty rather, we'll talk about them a bit, but I want to get both your thoughts on Asajj Ventress, delving into these characters a bit more. So I actually go to you first, Dave. With Asajj, I know there's still a bit more of a story to go and things, but how have you found? Did you find these episodes really elevated her? Do you think they're not as good as the prior ones? What are your kind of thoughts on her?
I thought these episodes definitely elevated her, and I guess because we've been going through, in chunks. We did the whole of season 1, and then it's like Aristotle's arrow, isn't it? It's just been getting smaller and smaller. But I'm sure in season 1, when she first turns up, I think you asked me that then. Now, because I just gorged, I watched Rebels, and then I needed more. And you said, oh no, do this cherry picking thing. I'm like, nope, completionist, I'm doing the lot. However, it's an undertaking and a half, that, isn't it? So I can't say I was 100% concentrated for all of it. So it's good going through the second time and actually, no, I am going to pause here and not go further on and actually think about what I've just seen. So when you asked me, I didn't really have an opinion. It was like, oh, she's just one of the many other new faces that you haven't seen in live action, but appear in Clone Wars and whatever. But these episodes, she's fucking brilliant. It's really, really good. I really think she steps up to a different level. And I mean, we're getting into the good stuff now, aren't we? Really getting into the good stuff. So 5, 6, and 7, it's different gravy. And I'd almost, before we went into this 4, because previous in season 4, it's been really lumpy. There's been some really great stuff. And in my head, I talked about the Krell stuff, coloured my whole opinion of the whole season. But there's been some fucking shite as well. So, I think getting to these 4, though, I think I watched episode 19 and I think I messaged you guys and I was just like, oh, yeah. Now we're talking. I'd forgotten all of this. But yeah, she was obviously central to that and really comes to, full circle by the end of the season, doesn't she? But it made me remember and I was like, oh, yeah. We'll now we need to talk about it first, but we're getting into series 5, 6, and 7. Yes,
we are. This is, I'd say, the Krell arc, Mortis, the Krell arc, and this is actually, I think Mortis might actually be the last season, but it's the Bounty Hunter one. That was one of the good ones. Yeah, Mortis was prior. So it's really, the Umbaran arc is, God tier. I mean, it's Clone Wars episodes. Then the Bounty Hunters one is held in quite high regard. That's quite a cool one. There's 4 episodes with Obi-Wan. And then you've got these 4. So Maff, what did you think? What have you thought of Ventress? And then we'll kind of lean that into these sort of first 2 episodes. I think you're muted.
I'm muted. Right.
There you go.
I'm not going to say it again. No, you really like these post episodes, don't you?
I do, but I think there's just a lot that this is a catalyst. These 4 episodes, they an explosion hits the ground and we're at ground zero. And the next few seasons are seeing what are the repercussions of what starts here.
You see, that's what I think I've got the problem with. They're all right, but I think maybe once I've watched the next couple of seasons, these will hit better if I watch it again.
Do you mean just these 2 first Asajj or all 4?
All 4.
Really?
I feel that it's a setup. There is good bits in it, and I did enjoy them, but I do feel they're setting the story up but not quite giving us it. I also feel a little bit with Ventress that there was a bit. She's a bit lost in what she wants to be.
Yeah,
and she's finding herself in the galaxy. And I feel that the bit in Bounty where you could kind of see it coming from a mile off that what she was going to do, and she still keeps a bit of a kind of a bounty side to it, but you could see a double cross coming. It was, especially when it's like, I think is it Pluma? She's like, you don't know what it's like to be kind of torn away from your family. And at that point, it's like, oh, God, they're going to do this again. Right, okay, fine. I can kind of see it. But all the way up to that point, Ventress has been a hard ass. She's been, not really caring. And it were like, we've got to melt her heart a little bit so that she can, give a shit. And that. So I feel that they're good, but I need a bit more from it. And I think that might come further down the line of this is like a big setup for them all.
Yeah, I mean, it is in some respects. But so you're telling me that you weren't a fan of this first episode, Massacre. The episode where Grievous and Dooku go down and basically wipe out the Nightsisters, which is
that bit's quite
that bit, that's the whole episode. Yeah, that one bit, the 22 of 25 minutes of that episode.
The bit, what I did like is, which was quite interesting, because I think in one of the previous things you were saying, like Grievous, Kenobi fights him 3 times. It's only on the 3rd time he beats him.
It's like canonically, it's like 7.
Right.
They have 7 confrontations, I think it is. But actual on screen in Clone Wars, I think.
Whenever Grievous meets anyone else, he just massacres them.
Yeah, wipes the floor.
Ventress kicks the shit out of him, and it's only because he's got his army that he survived, and that's the point when I sat back and thought, you've seen her kind of duel with Obi-Wan, and they're kind of fairly matched, and I think it elevates, although Obi-Wan's kind of not beaten Grievous for several times, it does elevate. You realise how good Obi-Wan is because she is top tier. She's really good at this, and she could have, if it weren't for his armor being there, she would have finished him off. But again, that episode, it's kind of it's weird because it's like 2 rebirths in these 4 episodes. You have it with Ventress where she kind of goes and she's like baptized in the Nightsisters to kind of ascend to become a Nightsister, and that, so they kind of bring her back in. And I don't know, does she get witchy powers from that? I'm not quite sure. Yeah. And then you have the whole kind of massacre, and you get zombies in this kid's cartoon.
Well, second time we've had zombies too. The first ones were in the Geonosis arc in season 2.
Yeah, true. So that kind of, these first 2 episodes are kind of set alone episodes, just trying to kind of build on Ventress a little bit. But I still feel they're not really sure what they wanted to do with her. And that's kind of where I feel a little bit like, I need more kind of, you're trying to build a story up and kind of give it a bit of background and a kind of a new identity, but you're just not quite sure where you're going with it yet.
I mean, they're fair comments. I mean, I think the Massacre episode is probably one of the best episodes of Clone Wars, but, Dave, what do you kind of think of this episode? I think you're quite counter to Maff on this one.
Yeah, well, I'd say the negative first. I look on IMDb, and Massacre gets 8.1 and Bounty gets 8.2. Now, I don't know what it was, but Bounty just didn't resonate with me at all. Yeah, that was a filler episode for me. Now, obviously, the whole franchise is called Star Wars, so, you've got all going on, but typically when you're watching stuff, you're seeing soldiers on one side, soldiers on the other, even though the rebels, so they're outgunned essentially, but that's what you're seeing. You're seeing people going into battle together. And then even as we've seen through Clone Wars, when they take over a planet or something, they just mainly want the resources. So for me, this was just a mass slaughter. This was Dooku properly, exerting his authority and showing his military might. And so for me, I just thought it was nothing will get to Order 66 levels, but seeing everyone just wiped out, I thought it was really, really powerful. And I'm scratching my head. I don't understand that the IMDb rating, because Massacre for me was a great episode. And then Bounty, I kind of lost interest. I wasn't really bothered, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree. I'd say Massacre, I forgot the bounty. I knew it existed, but I remember it being a bit more interesting, but it is pretty weak. It just feels like it feels like they almost jumbled up the order, and this should have almost been like an epilogue to the bounty hunter arc we saw with Obi-Wan. Like, that's how it felt like, but they couldn't have done that until Asajj was kind of separated from everyone. So
I think Bounty they had this cool idea of ninjas, and they wanted to kind of show it, and kind of, but yeah, to be fair, that episode could have fitted almost anywhere.
Yeah,
Asajj the only reason,
you know.
Yeah,
it's just a kind of again. We've got 21 episodes. Quick, make me another one, and we'll just kind of plonk it in, and there is. I think in a Massacre there is a little bit to lead into Bounty, because is that where she meets one of the bounty hunters?
Yeah, Massacre and Bounty are classed as two-parters. This is technically a 4-episode arc.
But it don't feel two parts. It feels like they're both separate.
I think the reason it is, I agree with you, but I think the reason is because at the start, around this part in season 3, the halfway mark, you had, Savage is only there. Savage and Asajj both come from the Dathomirian Nightsisters in two very different ways, but but in a lot of ways it's a lot of parallels, because essentially Dooku went to Dathomir, demanded a warrior, and Talzin gave him one. That's what Palpatine got Maul that way, and then Dooku got Asajj from her old master, I think, or something like that. He kind of found her, and then you've got Savage was like chosen to basically replace what Asajj had been for Dooku, but also what Maul had been for Palpatine. So there's this weird trifecta of Dathomirian stuff being involved. But I think because Savage and Asajj both started in the same kind of area, or at least the way they introduced Savage was using Asajj. God, saying that so many times is making my brain melt. I think that's why they are connected, and because of the Mother Talzin sort of connection between them. But I think Massacre's phenomenal. I think it's mature, it's brutal, it has so much lore impact, and I'm surprised it didn't affect you more, Maff, because of your enjoyment of Fallen Order. And Merrin's entire character, without spoiling anything for Dave, but her entire character arc, I know he's played Fallen Order, but it's all connected to the Nightsisters. That's the whole...
I think that's the problem. They got taken out too easily. But I think that's the thing. That's where it's like... Oh. And then Ventress kind of comes in and takes on Grievous and kind of wipes the floor over him pretty much. And it's like Mother Talzin, she fucks off and just leaves him to it. And it just felt like you've got this coven of witches who show that they're very powerful, but they just got taken over too easily and kind of wiped out. And
does it show they are powerful, or does it show Talzin is powerful?
Well,
because she does also resurrect, that hundreds of them with the zombie things.
Dakar, she resurrects all the undead ones and kind of comes in to help fight, with Ventress. So they are powerful. The thing is, well, Ventress she's force sensitive as well, so that gives her the upper hand. I'm assuming the others are just.
Everyone is technically force sensitive. If we're gonna technically, everyone's force sensitive.
We've all got midichlorians, yeah.
Everyone does have midichlorians, but it's to what degree. And the way Luke Skywalker explains it in one of the comics is the force is like a door. Some people, it's essentially almost closed, but you can open it. And other people, they're just born and the door's wide open. And that going through that doorway is your connection to the Force. So anyone, in theory, could connect to the Force. I think witches primarily do it via rituals and things like that. And it's aligned with the dark side stuff. So I think when you're in... And also we know that Force sensitivity is more or less, for the most part, genetic. Is it given down? So if you've got a group of witches... And they use, because when they go and get Savage in the prior season, they're like, we need one of your males. And then they're like, well, for the mating, of course. So they're all the witches are all coming from the same kind of gene pool. I mean, I see what you're saying. I think what this episode doesn't do is show the scale of the massacre. Now, I will say there's something even Dave hasn't seen, but there is a piece of content that we'll tackle at some point in the future, which specifically shows another perspective of this massacre. And that other perspective shows the weight of how many there were. But you also think a Coven of Witches, if you're lucky, is a few hundred. If you're lucky, but it's probably about 30, 40. You have to think Grievous, who's a general in an army fighting the entire Republic. Like it's the historical thing of natives versus colonialism. It's just you throw hordes of people against them.
But that's not, you see, other times if she'd have, I feel that she, a bit like Krell. When Krell were kind of always staying back and just letting the clones get killed all the time. She would kind of do the same thing. She could have helped and probably assisted them more, and maybe they still would have lost. But the fact that Ventress can go up against Grievous and I'd say she beats him, and that she don't get a killing blow or anything like that, but she beats him. If they'd all kind of pulled together, they could have repelled this. And I feel it's a waste that it's like they just got wiped out, or a lot of them got wiped out.
There's quite a lot of them. I see where you are coming from, but I mean, Talzin does go near the front lines and things, but the way I kind of view Talzin is she's much like Yoda, which is she can really help, but she can't literally just beat every battle, because that's like arguing, well, Yoda's in a battle with the clones, like in season 1. Why didn't they just win every battle? Because they got Yoda with them. It's like, well, because it's more than just one person. It's Anakin doesn't win every single battle he's in just because he's there. Same as Kenobi, same as Yoda. They are definitely, they give a lot of assistance, but I think that it's just the sheer, and again, I don't think this episode showed it that expertly. I think it's basically, they were sending like thousands of battle droids, like thousands, just lobbing them, just entirely, because Dooku basically was told by his master, this is a priority. So it's basically just unlimited resources. And you saw there was like 5 or 10 gunships that all landed. And if you think in Phantom Menace, those things that came out when they fought the Gungans, how many B-1 battle droids came out of that? You think like, how many would it take? And again, the reason I'm kind of cheating is because I've seen this other bit of content and it shows the scale of how many droids there were. Whereas I think this was a limit of the animation because like, oh, there's 20 droids walking towards them against 20 witches.
You see, that's the thing. It's like if you were to go, if you go back and watch like Night of the Living Dead, they're shambling. They're not like the 2001 one where they run. They're all back in 1978 or something like that. It is.
Yeah, I've got on DVD actually.
But it's not the fact that they're shambling and that; it's the fact that there's a mass of them, and I just feel that it kind of shows. The gunships coming down and all the battle cruisers and that, but I don't know. I feel they could have done more to fight back. Obviously, they are going to get overwhelmed. So maybe at that point, Mother Talzin says, "No, we have to retreat," and takes a load of them. But I feel she just leaves them to it, and then she fucks off herself, and it's like just waste.
Do you have any more comments on that, Dave?
I think it's just, if you look at different wars, like if you think of the Second World War and stuff, the Germans just had a military technology, like everything was just better than, they just steamrolled France, who were still fighting like almost eight. In fact, was it the second or was it the first where the French just were still, they had the old rifles and stuff like that, and the Germans had like machine guns. When you get military might to that level, it's like new military world meets old world. So for me, there is no contest. It's almost like, oh, look, fucking Bruce Lee's turned up. All right, but here's a machine gun. Bruce Lee meet machine gun. Like there's only one winner. So, the witches are really powerful and put up a decent defense, but it was just a hopeless task. I think that's how I saw it, where it was just seeing the true power of the Empire's military there.
I mean, there is also a good bit with the Dooku voodoo doll. I did like that, and that then did then, Dooku then is telling Grievous, you need to push forward and take her out because
you're dying, and that's what Talzin was doing. You've just, funny enough, you've just answered your question that me and Dave missed. That's what Talzin was doing. Her focus is trying to get Dooku.
Yeah,
we got there in the end.
She got Dooku, and she was doing the big orb thing and shooting lightning. But I think let's move on to Bounty, and then we can move on to the sort of the Maul and Savage stuff. So I know we've kind of lightly touched on Bounty, but I've got a few fun facts. So the cameo was Dengar. And Dengar's voiced by Simon Pegg. He always likes to pop up in Star Wars. He's Unkar Plutt in The Force Awakens, and he's very critical of the Phantom Menace. And he's in lots of other fun little tidbits. But also, I've got note that there's quite a few bounty hunters in this. I had to look up some of them. So we've got Bosk, Trandoshan. Everyone knows Bosk from Empire Strikes Back. And we've got Dengar, also Empire Strikes Back. Boba Fett, again, Empire Strikes Back. Then we got some of the more side ones. So you've got Embo, who was in the Bounty Hunters Obi-Wan Undercover arc. He's a Kyozo. I've said before, inspired by Seven Samurai. He's in the Aftermath books. He's quite a cool character. So you've got him. You've got Latz Razi, who's a Thelan. And she is in she's in an upcoming book called Dark Disciple, and she's in the odd little thing here and there, but not very much. But she's a Thelan, which is the same species as Jeki Lon, which is the Padawan of Acolyte. But Jeki was a half human, half Thelan. This woman was a full Thelan. We've then got C-21, a High Slinger, who is a combat droid. He actually appeared recently in the Jango Fett comic number 4. He's also in Dark Disciple. And then he also pops up, oddly enough, and I didn't know this, in a Darth Vader comic. In the 2015 Darth Vader comic number 16, he's in like one panel where Vader like puts a call out to get a couple of bounty hunters, and like it does almost like the anime thing where it's like 5 faces, I can't do it, but I'm in, and he's one of the ones who gets spoken to. Then the other two we've got is Oakhead, who's an unknown species, and he dies immediately, so who cares? And then you've got Kato Parasiti, who is a Claudite, aka a shapeshifter. And that character is actually in the Holocron heist episode of Clone Wars, all the way back in, I think, the start of Series 2 or end of Series 1, and same species as Zam Wessel in Attack of the Clones, that's how they track down Jango Fett. So that's me just verbally waterboarding everyone with information on the bounty hunters. And my opinion of this episode was echoing what you guys said, which is, it's all right. It's quite predictable. It's quite plodded along. The action's all right. It's cool seeing Asajj kind of be a bit badass. But for me, the rest of it, I mean, I wrote down Robot Dude is cool, which is C-21 High Slinger, like when he's taking names. Very cool. Quite a lot like IG-11 or IG-88. Don't know why they didn't just kind of use him. But I did write down some of the worst dialogue, which I've seen in the Clone Wars so far. And that is Boba Fett, when he talks to the person giving him the job and he goes, "You make the rules. I follow them." And that's the dialogue. And you're like, what? When has Boba Fett ever sounded less cool? But when has anyone sound less cool? That sounds like a school prefect telling a librarian that he's going to... And you're like, what a pointless waste of time bit of crap dialogue that did nothing. So, thoughts, friends, on Bounty? Anything to note? I
do have something.
Do it.
I think at the start of this... the episode that you released today, I did listen back. Of... season 4, the first 10 episodes that we did there.
Yeah.
We talked about the gravity. You said, do you have an issue with gravity in all the planets? They actually do tackle it in this. Ever so slightly, it is mentioned because they say about, why don't you just fly in there to kind of, and it's like, because the gravity is so hard, you would literally just crash into the surface. So it's like, oh, right, okay, so that obviously, you know, when they kind of go out there, they're going to be fighting, they're going to be kind of stuck to the thing. But no, they're still jumping around and that. So it were mentioned, and you kind of thought they could do pretty cool with this, and then it was forgotten about.
I think that's the thing with Star Wars being a space fantasy as opposed to a sci-fi. Because sci-fi is like, here's some strict rules, we need to follow them, like Interstellar, or I think Star Trek is quite a lot about, you know, we need to make sure the ship is operating at this thing, and if we go into this planet with this atmosphere, blah, blah, blah. Star Wars is like, nah, fuck that. Star Wars is like, be quite nerd, you know? You want to go to a planet with gravity? Go play around with another sandpit, you know? We're space fantasy, which basically means our rules are completely loose. Like people whinging in the Acolyte, there was fire in a spaceship, and you're like, in space, it's like, right, have you watched any other Star Wars film? Like, there are, in the prequels, R2 gets introduced in The Phantom Menace, and he puts out a little fire on the Naboo ship in space. So, nonsense. But yeah, fair point about the gravity, Maff. Good fun.
Yeah. Again, it's just a filler episode. there's some cool parts in it. You know, Ventress again, she gets to show what she can do. But it just didn't seem to really. Watching the person, yeah, it was all right. I quite enjoyed it, but you know, this and it was like, oh, right, okay, and then we get on to the next two episodes, and I thought, okay, right, this is kind of going somewhere again now. I am excited, and that, but I just maybe because it is only 4 episodes we've kind of covered, and that I'm picking more fault because I've only got 4 episodes to kind of play around.
You're normally
with.
the positive one. I'm
Yeah,
the apologist, but you're the one that's like, actually, guys, this episode is a bit crap. I quite like it. It's not too bad. Lightsaber Lost is actually a really good episode, guys. Well, I want to ask, so Dave, before we get into Maul and Savage, because that's what we really want to talk about, is there anything else you want to say about the bounty episode?
Not really.
Cool. Right, so next up. No.
So seriously, it really struggled, or I really struggled to keep my attention to it. It just reminds me, I think as well, because I'm thinking after Massacre, I'm thinking, oh shit, yeah, we're right on the cusp of the really great seasons where it really steps up. And I'm thinking, oh, this is just put the foot down and just go for it. And then I just felt like Bounty it was another filler episode that we've seen through all the seasons that we've covered. And you just get to these episodes, it's like, yeah, but because we're doing like 20 episodes or something, it's like, got an opinion on that? Nope. Let's move on. So, yeah, I just felt, like you say, because Ventress is in it, and you know, maybe it had to be there, but I feel like it could have dropped in anyway. But it wasn't really attached to the story. It wasn't really attached to the arc, I wouldn't say. So, yeah.
Good point. Well, let's delve into brothers. So, you know, there's a few little bits I want to mention, which is Dooku can sense something about Savage, so can Asajj, and so does Anakin. They all can sense him. And Yoda mentions he does right near the end, but it seems like the only 3 people who notice Savage are people who are somewhat in tune to the dark side, which I only just kind of made that connection now. But I want to ask you, Maff, what you thought about this with a fresh thing, because you've already known Maul in some way survives. I've tried intentionally not to really say what he does, and I think in certain comic episodes you listened to before we went on this journey, you might have heard we kind of mentioned Spider Maul or something. I don't know if you did.
Yeah.
But so what did you think going into this? Was it what you expected? Did you like the episode? Like, what were your kind of thoughts going in?
I like that we got Savage. I thought, right, okay. So, and he was, because he was back in season 3. So
Yeah.
it's like it's been a big gap, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, remember this guy? Here we go.
Remember Beefy Maul?
And then he's got that necklace that's kind of guiding him where to go. I do feel sorry for the guy that he
Just threw out.
he threw out. It's like, it's a little bit harsh, fella.
I mean, there's a lot of people I feel sorry for. Anyone who goes near Maul or Savage or Opress, you just feel sorry for.
Yeah.
And there's many of that to come.
It's, you know, it's like, you know.
But you didn't feel bad at the start of the episode, though, when he was throwing people around in the restaurant. You're like, those people, fuck you, restaurant goers. But an honest man like you, Maff, is carrying around cargo. You're like, yeah. I respect him. How dare Savage do that? He's just doing his job.
I mean, you know, but it kind of gets there, and then you get into this onto the planet, and I like the aspects of it, and that, you know, you have the fire eaters, fire breathers,
the junker dinosaur-y things.
The junkers, I kind of I felt there was a cross between like robot and sand people.
Yeah,
it gave, you know, or even the Jawas, and that kind of gave that vibe. But again, it was an episode that was setting up. So it's good, but I just feel it's another setup episode to kind of get you to the next episode. You know, we meet, is it Morley?
Well, you meet him and he's gone.
Yeah. And that, which I kind of thought, oh, well, it's like the serpent from Adam and Eve, you know, and it's like, you can't trust this guy. He's gonna double cross you, but obviously Savage is, you know, he's very strong. He's just not quite with it up there. I don't know, you know. Again, it kind of gets to that point, and then you get to going down, and then we kind of you hear Scotland of Maul and that.
And what do you think of Maul's like insanity and stuff? Like, what was your kind of? Did you like it? Because he's been by himself for 10 years. So how do you think it worked?
I think it works really well because like he's been through a traumatic thing, and that I mean, someone's constructed these legs for him.
I think it's hinted it's him. I think.
Yeah, I like the fact that they don't work properly. Like the kind of he's losing his footing and that. I like the fact that he's whispering to himself and he's questioning and he's like trying to play things back, and it's like the signs of a madman. I also, one thing I really did like is when Asajj is kind of going through the corridors and he uses the lightsaber as a torch and that, and it just kind of holds up. I thought, yeah, you would do that, and I think they do it in the Geonosis arc as well.
Yeah, they do it quite a bit because they do it in Fallen Order as well. Cal obviously does it.
Yeah, Cal does it all the time. Yeah. I thought that they should do that more. You can't see anything, so you've got a light stick.
It's got the noise of the hum. I think that's why some people don't use it, because it's just you turn it on and it's a loud and then it's just this low hum, so you can always kind of, especially if you're trying to sneak up on a Force user, you can hear it.
But yeah, I feel that once you actually start seeing bits of Maul, and then you're going to meet him. I like that. I like the fact that he's this crazed person, and that he's kind of it's the bit Robinson Crusoe. He's been on Ireland for so long. He's lost in himself, But you kind of want to know how he got there. Now I don't know if they're going to do a flashback of the more likely. No. This is it. There you go.
It's literally this. I think there's a little bit of legend stuff that came out after this, but mainly the canon stuff. It's very loose. I think, from memory, all you kind of find out is essentially what he got cut down in. That was a garbage chute, and then he was basically just dying, thrown into Lothar Minor, and then for somehow 10 years he just survived. The big criticism I have, which I'm going to pass the baton to Dave, but the biggest thing that doesn't make any sense is the whole, if you've got slashed across the stomach, you could bullshit your way to surviving that. But he literally doesn't have a lower half. So either he physically cannot eat things, or he's very, very lucky that Obi-Wan severed just under his digestional tract. And I think it's actually mainly hinted at that he just doesn't eat. He just lives off the hate, which in the canon they say that basically Vader and Palpatine do something similar, but they do still have to eat some degree of sustenance. And I think that's the bit that loses me the most in this. It takes me out. I'm just like, if it was a few months, you'd get it. But 10 fucking years, he's not. I think he's only like mid-20s, 30s in the Phantom Menace. So it's like a decent portion of his life is on this planet, somehow just surviving. So I'm going to give the baton to you, Dave, to hear your thoughts on your second time watching the resurrection, I guess, of Maul. Like, what you kind of thought of all that?
Yeah, I guess I'll get to Maul in a sec. But when you messaged and said, "Oh, there's a cameo I want to speak about," I was like, "Oh, I'm going to listen out." I completely missed Simon Pegg, but when the snake turns up, I was like, "Fucking hell, that's James Hong. That is, Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China."
I've not seen that film, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it wasn't, but he does sound a bit like it. But I was on the lookout for a cameo then, and I completely misfired. I was like, "Oh no, it's not fucking him at all." So yeah, I actually get what you're saying there, Maff, about it being a bit filler, like the whole Savage thing going through on a quest, and I'd like the subtitles on. It just seems weird. It's like a Mrs. Bouquet thing. It's like written Savage. Oh yeah, but it's Savage. Yeah, Savage. But yeah, I just feel I don't know if I forgive the Maul turning back up. Somehow Maul survived, but I kind of get as well, if you've made that decision, then you have to explain where he's been all this time. So the old classic, He's not quite with it, or else if he was of sound mind, well, he'd have been trying to get back to the Emperor probably, and like just pick things up where he left off. And so, I kind of, it's weird. I can't explain why my brain is telling me this, but I kind of forgive the whole insanity thing and the fact that he's somehow survived, or like you say, he doesn't eat somehow. So it's just all a bit of nonsense.
Criticism my own thing that I ranted about is Morley says I get people down here and then I feast off the leftovers. So I think that he is indicating that Maul is like eating people. But again,
unless it's a case of like he's using the Force to suck the Force, like a vampire,
drinking their blood, even. Yeah.
Is he able to tap into their life force and kind of use the dark side to kind of sustain himself that way?
Maybe. But sorry, back to you, Dave.
Yeah, so I'm okay with it. I think the second time. Again, I think the first time, when I saw Solo, I'm like, what the fuck's going on? And I seem to remember reading something. It's like, but you gotta watch Clone Wars, and I watch Clone Wars and I'm like, this is bollocks. Again, I don't understand why you couldn't. I guess maybe they had in their mind, they wanted to see him go after Kenobi. Maybe that's the thing they wanted to set up, but I still don't know why you couldn't just make him a brother type character and like who's after revenge, because
they got Savage Opress. Like they almost were like, hey, here's the perfect example, and then they're like, but we're not going to do that. And you're like,
no, we're going to pluck this thing out of our asses and just run with it. So yeah, I think I can kind of go through with it, but like I say, the first time it was like, oh, this is bollocks. But I tell you the thing that I find strange, and I don't know why I find it strange, is when he starts speaking, it's like he's on Shakespeare or something. He's got this real posh English accent. He's like this proper thespian. And I had to go back to Phantom Menace because I'm like, Darth Maul doesn't fucking sound like that. But of course he does, doesn't he? He's voiced by Peter.
Serafinowicz.
That's the one. I'm glad you said that. And it's at last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi, and I'm sure I've seen him talk about doing that, and he thought he'd have this bigger part, and it's like tiny little bit. So, but yeah, there's something about it in animation where it just feels like he's Shakespeare in the Park or something. So I don't know, it just feels off to me.
You didn't feel that way with Rebels?
No, I don't know what it was. I think maybe the contrast of having the crazed Darth Maul at the start, and then he's like, oh yeah, I'm all right. Oh yes, we must reveal ourselves to the Jedi. It's like, oh, he's back. He's got his thespian voice back. So yeah, it was probably just that contrast there.
You want to say something, Maff, before we move on to the next bit?
I forgot what it was.
Okay, well. So we'll move on to the finale of the season.
Actually, yes, I do.
Perfect timing.
Sorry. I think if they'd have just gone with Savage and that people would have gone, but it's not, they tried to do Maul, but it's not Maul. So I think they kind of feel that they have to bring Maul back.
It's like bigger Maul.
Yeah, but
Maul plus.
They might be going, this is like the Maul Etsy or something like that.
Mega Maul.
Although he's bigger and I don't think he has the same presence as what Maul has.
Oh, no, definitely.
And I think because Maul, the way he talks and how calm he is about things, whereas, Savage is, and it's like he's like a beast, whereas it's like with Tarkin. Tarkin's, you're worried about Tarkin because of he's very calm and he's very calculated in what he's doing. And he's got a plan. You feel that Maul's got that as well. So I think that's why he's a bit more kind of...
What could his plan be? What could Maul's plan
Obi-Wan.
be? Where is that going to go? No, I mean, it's fair. I think, because also, Savage, although it feels very recent, he was only in a few episodes in season 3. So I wonder if maybe Maff, you're right, and they just went, no, we tried this, and it just doesn't really feel, it doesn't fit what we want. It's just another brute. And realistically, Asajj Ventress is just a force sensitive Grievous. You know, when you strip him back, he's really cool, badass. He's unhinged, but not like crazy. He just has his main emotion, if only, is rage. And he's really powerful, spins a blade a lot, very hard to kill. And so I feel like maybe they were like, oh, why don't we try something? They tried it with Savage, and they're like, this just isn't landing. We need to kind of flush it out a bit more. And then they were like, well, Maul coming back. And I know at the end of the Savage stuff, we do kind of, it leads to Maul. So maybe it was their plan all along. Agatha all along. Maul all along. But I wonder if, because thinking about it, yeah, why didn't they just keep Savage or something? But I think you're right. It's, although Maul's presence, ironically, in The Phantom Menace was not this calm collective, it was essentially an animal in a cage, as one of the things that Ray Parks did when you see the Maul pacing bit, when the ray shields come up and Qui-Gon just sits there and meditates. That, the kind of note, he kind of thought of it, he initially was standing still, and then Ray Parks said to Lucas, why don't I try pacing like a caged animal kind of thing? And so when you see Maul in The Phantom Menace, you don't think, oh yes, he's this very calm, collect, thought out thing. You're like, he goes for it. He doesn't say much and he goes for it. So this is, I think the way Savage is used in this is to balance out Maul's rage in a way, because Maul has a rage and it does come out in future episodes, where it's one of my favorite things about him. I think he's very dynamic. I think you've got this calm, collected, I've got a plan and we're going to do this. But as soon as Kenobi is mentioned, he just loses fucking mind. And you see him just this rage, and that's kind of his undoing, is his need for revenge, his ego. And that's kind of the thing that Palpatine doesn't really have, because Palpatine, you know, he's planned for everything, even his own death in theory. And so I think it works well again. I think that a lot of what works with Maul is making mistakes and then just kind of flubbing your way to success, I guess. I don't know if you guys had thoughts kind of on this, the revenge episode. You know, Savage takes Maul to Dathomir. He kind of has that ritual stuff. He gets new legs. And then you get like a little bit in peace, and then you get the Kenobi stuff. So I wonder if you guys, if you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Did you notice something different
about
this episode?
Well, it was actually, I think the last episode allegedly did it, but I think this is the only one that did, is this, the starting sequence. It's red, isn't it? The Clone Wars.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as that popped up, I thought, oh. And yeah, it was just, obviously, Maul, so they kind of finish it off with the red trim.
Mm.
And so I thought, oh, that was quite nice. I do feel that I mean, it takes you back to Mother Thousand, don't they? And they kind of, the animation they use when they give him his legs is just, it's brilliant. It's unique in the way that they kind of, you see the spell kind of twisted and forming and that, you know, because do they rip the old legs off it? I can't remember now. And
I think she kind of pulls them apart and melts them back together as well. But I like how she pulls the black smoke out of his head. That's my favorite bit of that interaction, where she's like literally pulling like the madness, pulling the confines of his mind of how he could survive something like that is basically by making himself go mad in a way. And where she's physically pulling out the darkness out of his mind, and he gets up and he's like, calm, collected. Yeah. I like that
I just feel the whole, you know, I suppose I'm actually talking myself around a lot more now. I actually feel that this episode, it really does kind of build him up, and it's like you say with that cage beast. I think this is a point where he's gone from that cage beast of pacing up and down to, like, when she's pulled him out, he's got clarity, and he's like, I know what I have to do, and I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, I do know that him and Obi-Wan are going to meet at some point and have a fight. But I also know that other characters aren't going to get killed. But if I wasn't aware of that, I would be worried for Palpatine and Obi-Wan, because I feel that he's just got that presence. I think that, you know, you wouldn't bet against him, I don't think.
Yeah, and there's a lot to come. There's a lot of things Maul knows, is what I'm going to say, and I'll leave it there. But Dave, what do you think of this episode? What do you think of the ritual and stuff, of like that element, and then obviously when he has a confrontation with Kenobi, where Kenobi gets fucking destroyed immediately? But what did you think of this, Dave?
So yeah, I do think the season finished off really strongly. I have to say, and again, I can kind of put to the side the fact they made this decision to bring him back, and again, they just had to write a way to explain why he's been away for so long and how do we get him back to be this Bond villain sounding badass. But I don't. I was trying to think in your cameos. Did you also mention the fact that Ray Park did the motion capture for this as well, apparently?
So I didn't know that. I know there's something that happens in the future where there's motion capture, but I didn't know it was this one in particular.
So I do not either. So I was assuming I saw it in some of the trivia, and I assumed it was this one, but maybe it isn't. So maybe I'm full of shit there.
There's at least one. There's at least a confrontation that Maul has in the Clone Wars where there is motion capture, and it is very much worth it. But I won't say anything else.
Yeah, but so I just think you're right about Savage. I guess he's the henchman, really, isn't he? In this dynamic, you need like I said about the Bond villain, you need that brains of the operation. And again, the fact that he's got so much hate for Kenobi, I think that's an added little bonus there. So I did like the fact that they were just really overpowered him. Like Kenobi had no chance really until for some reason I didn't really understand this, but I know the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and there's that whole beef with Savage and Ventress from before. But like, just be like, oh fuck that, I'm not getting involved there. I don't quite understand why she had to jump in and get involved, because if they're not doing the whole back-to-back thing, Wolverine origin style, like, they don't get out, or Kenobi doesn't get out of there, which she obviously has to, but
I think it's because Ventress, she didn't know Maul was around, so she was like, oh, Savage is going. She did when she went against him, when she and Dooku fought Savage, she did basically beat him. He had to he just managed to pull a fast one and bail. So she knows she can essentially best him, and he's all brain and brawn. She just needs a dagger to do that. So I think she looked at him and went, oh, 1 million credits, that'll sort me out for a long time. I can just do that, take out a close business.
She just see them both together when she stood in the rafters.
Oh, no, yeah.
Stood there.
But by that point, she's there, and she's like, well,
yeah, but that
Kenobi's there fighting them anyway. My best chance to fight 2 Savage Opresses, not really knowing who Maul was. You're thinking, well, Kenobi's already fighting them. It's probably better chances. I know Kenobi's not going to stab me in the back as well. If it was Anakin, you'd maybe be a bit like, but she's like, well, Obi-Wan wouldn't kill me even if I was unarmed on the floor. He just would never do that. So I know that Obi-Wan's not going to stab me in the back. He's going to keep at least one of them busy. If I can kill one of them, me and Kenobi can take down the other one, and then maybe she could take down Kenobi or just run away. But she knows Kenobi. The amount of times that Kenobi is outmatched her and just has kind of let her go. And not really, and even then, they're like, one of my favorite things about Clone Wars Kenobi, even though I call him Obi-Wan, and then as soon as Maul's mentioned, my brain shifts into Kenobi. But it's with him, in the future episodes, I find what he does is his flirting. I love it. There's his sassiness and his flirting I really like. So whenever because he and Ventress do have future interactions that are not dissimilar to this, and it's always that kind of thing where they're antagonizing each other, but it is flirty and sassy, and I really like that dynamic. And there's one bit I really liked with the fighting where Ventress and Kenobi are really in sync with each other, and you've just got that really cool scene where you're watching them fight, and Savage is just running at them, and Maul is trying to be a bit more clever, but still they're both fueled by rage and on the offensive. But obviously Obi-Wan's strength is the defense, and I really like that sort of fight scene. So what do you guys both think of that element? I know Dave, you mentioned about Ray Parks and potential motion capture, but did you like, Obi-Wan at one point had a red lightsaber, then he had his blue. What do you think of the fighting? And then I'll pass it to Maff.
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was absolutely spectacular. Like I said, I was just a little bit puzzled as to why she would get involved. And maybe you mentioned about 1 million credits. Maybe if there was a bounty that I missed, getting the money.
That's how she knew him.
Yeah.
That was the start of the episode kind of area where middle ground, where she's in the bar with the bounty hunter she's friends with from the 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
So that's how the first 2 episodes link in. It shows why would Ventress be going after a bounty? Because of the filler episode we saw, she's now a bounty hunter. So I've just realised that myself.
Yeah. So it was solid. But when they swapped, again, it just seemed ridiculous to me. I just, okay. But no, it was enjoyable. I thought it was a very solid episode. And I think probably my enjoyment is more of what's to come than the actual episode itself.
So much we can't talk about.
Yeah.
There's like 3 big moments, pretty much 1 per season. And I'm like, I can't even hint at them, because even the hinting, you'll know. So there's just nothing else to say. I know time is getting short for you, Dave, and you have to shoot off before Maff and I do. So if time runs out, Maff and I will just finish it off, and so you can shoot. Is there anything else you want to mention? I was just going to say that I really like the elements of Maul, and there's a lot of fire imagery. He's standing with fire behind him. I quite like that, in the junkyard, Lothar Minor, there's a lot of fire, and then when Maul's standing there and he's yelling at Obi-Wan and stuff, a lot of that. So I want to ask, A, did you notice that? Did you care? And B, final thoughts of season 4 and anything else you want to mention, Dave. Go.
So in answer to your questions, no and no. But final thoughts. You know what? I'm glad we took the time to just do 4 episodes. Especially if I look back at the flyby on season 1, it is quite a lot to do, and then have an opinion and cram it into an hour and a half or something. But to just, it feels like they've had a bit of room to breathe, and we can discuss it. And some episodes we liked, some we didn't. Again, I think for me, because this season has been so lumpy, although, I do think the Massacre, out of all the 4 episodes, I think that one stands out for me, because it was just like a holy shit. And this wasn't the goodies versus the baddies. This wasn't the rebels versus the Empire, or, the Republic against the Separatists. This was, 2 kind of baddies, going at it. And I just thought, as the name suggests, it was a massacre. So I guess it just kind of reminded me that we are into the good stuff now, and just we've done our healthy food, we've taken our vitamins and everything, and now it's time for the payoff, and we can gorge a bit. And so just really excited for what comes next.
Amazing stuff. I'm just looking at and Maff and I will talk about it a little bit more, but I'm just trying to work out how we're going to split the next season. 6 and 7 are going to be easy to split, but Maff, you can't even look at the IMDb episodes because it would completely ruin everything for you, and it's really hard.
I have done. I briefly looked, and I saw where the droids are. That's episode 10. So
just don't stop looking. Stop looking. The episode names hint things. Even on IMDb, there are screenshots that spoil full episodes. So do not look on IMDb at all. But looking at IMDb, just so your knowledge, I think we'll watch probably the first 5. I think we'll do. I think we'll do the first 5 as a kind of kick-off to season 5, and there are quite a few like one-off episodes. There's a little bit of connections, but there's also a couple of one-offy things. So actually no, so it's a one-off and an arc, so that's fine. We'll do the first 5, then the next one I think we'll do like the middle bit, and then we'll split it. So it's going to be season 5 is going to be split amidst 4 or 5 episodes. So it's going to take us a little while to get through that, but it's going to be worth it because there's certain things that happen that we're going to have to spend whole episodes talking about. Before I go to Maff, are you sticking around for a little bit longer, Dave, or are you going to have this as your exit?
I'm going to have to go. I'm going to consider this my jump-off point. So, great choice to go with just 5 again. I think I really enjoyed just spending the time on each episode and exploring everything. So I think that'd be good to carry that on. So thank you very much, guys. It has been a pleasure as always. I shall leave you to it and catch you next time.
In a bit, Dave. Thanks so much.
In a bit, Dave.
So, Maff, so what with this final episode, how did you find the stuff with Maul, the fighting, anything you want to mention about any of the various things I threw at Dave there for revenge?
At one point when you were kind of saying something about sassy Obi-Wan, I had to just take my headphones off to speak to my son. So I don't know if you actually said this, but I love the sassy Obi-Wan.
You went flirting with Ventress in the fight. I love it.
It's like when she gives him the lightsaber and says, "Oh, red is not really my colour." And it's like, But then I like the bit where when he meets Maul and he's like, I like your new legs, it makes you taller. And,
Yeah.
and then the other one was, when I cut you in half, I should have aimed for the neck. And that's what I love about the Obi-Wan character. That's what I like, the fact that he's very serious, but he has that sassy kind of side to him that you just it's not so much he's making everything a bit of a joke, but he's keeping it half-hearted because it kind of helps him maybe concentrate and get through it. But the interaction between them, that when they get the hologram of, Maul's kind of calling Obi-Wan out, and then he shows the hostages, and then it just moves away a little bit, and then he obviously takes the hostages out, and it's like, it's quite brutal. And that's the point where it's like, yeah, you have to go. But again, Yoda's like, no, let him go on his own. And it's like, everyone's like, no, you can't do that. He's going to get killed. And it's like an unexpected ally. And it's like, if you know this, Yoda, why don't you share with the class?
That's what Yoda's style.
Just stop being I love you, but you're being a bit of a dick. Come on, give us a bit of a heads up on that. I mean, unless he's already read all the script for the next, it just, I feel that maybe the Force is kind of telling him, look, trust in the Force, which is Yoda's thing. It's like, trust in the Force and it will provide. But I don't know. If he was wrong, he was just about to lose Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it's like
I think he can sense that Asajj is kind of teetering, and I also think that if he'd have told Obi-Wan would have probably been like, "Oh yeah, Obi-Wan, by the way, you're going to go find Maul and Savage. Ventress might be there." He'd be like, "What? I'm not going there. That's a murder." Whereas not knowing is kind of being in this dire strait. Like, you have to trust Ventress because you have no other choice. I think that's probably what Yoda was thinking.
I think Obi-Wan still would have gone.
Probably, yeah.
And that even if it had been a case of he has to sacrifice himself for everybody else, that's the kind of person he is. So he would have still gone.
He wouldn't have acted the same. So that's the kind of, I think that's the problem. Because like, if you go in not knowing you have any backup, you'll act differently than knowing you've got a safety net behind you or something.
Yeah. But the thing is, even when he goes in there, he doesn't fully believe it's Maul.
Yeah.
Because he questions it and he's like, he's asking, who are you? He said, I'm not sure I've made your acquaintance. And Maul's like, I killed your master. And he's like, oh, it is you. That's the point when he realizes, yeah, hang on a minute. This is him. That, yes, he's beaten him once, but there's two of them now.
And I killed your master where you stood there helplessly and watched. It's like, oh,
yeah.
That's a cross that Obi-Wan's been carrying in for a long time.
Which, I mean, I do feel that Obi-Wan doesn't necessarily tap into the dark side, but you do kind of see him, he lashes out.
I agree.
He does kind of, it fuels him a little bit, which is a side of Obi-Wan you don't see. And I think that's that rawness of, yeah, he did stand there and he watched his master get killed, and there was nothing he could do about it. And then, you've got 10 years of Maul going crazy and having all this built-up anger of his main thought is just to kill Obi-Wan. And now Obi-Wan's all of a sudden 10 years of kind of suppressing this, this guilt. He just lets slip.
I mean, a lot of theory is that in The Phantom Menace, when Obi-Wan beats Darth Maul, he's channeling the dark side. Because he sees Qui-Gon Jinn, he runs, he shouts, and he sprints at him, and there's like really aggressive moves, and then he falls down. And that's kind of the show, which is the reason Anakin seems to win quite a lot is most Jedi, when they channel the dark side, it unbalances them and they either make mistakes or they're not strong in the Force because they're not as used to it. Whereas with Anakin, he thrives in the dark side of the Force. So when he tunes into it, it makes him better and he doesn't become as unbalanced in a way. And that's what kills Vader in the end of Return of the Jedi, because he's so sitting in the dark side so much, then it's like, oh, I'm now unbalanced because there's too much light coming in.
Yeah, because when you see Obi-Wan fight, he's very defensive. He's very he holds back and that. In The Phantom Menace, when he goes up more, he's just, brutally attacking him. It's an all-out assault. And yeah, I suppose he does channel that thing. And you see it in this, he kind of really goes up more. But fortunately Ventress is there to kind of save his ass, because otherwise he would have just been taken out. But
Oh yeah.
again, Maul's very much like, he doesn't just want to kill him. He says at one point, was it?
It's like, I'm going to keep
I
you
want to
alive.
keep you alive,
and you can feel every
awake,
cut.
so you feel every cut. It's like, yeah,
This is a kid's show.
I'm going to torture you, basically. And you're going to, I won't be surprised if in the next 10 years you were going to get tortured over and over again, because this is what Maul, his revenge on you, and that even though you killed his master, you've lost something as well. So it's just I can't wait to see where it goes from there, because again, I think when they kind of both, Ventress and Obi-Wan, realise that they're kind of getting a bit outmatched, it's like, shall we run? It's like, run. I learned it from you. And that, again, the sassy Obi-Wan. But at that point, you realise you've just learned it is actually more. There's a lot of emotions kind of coming in there. You're not going to win this. You need backup. You need more. And that.
Well, and as you know, just because of Rebels, no one kills Maul.
No.
So it's like, well, what happens? And the journey's really cool. Season 5 is, looking through the episodes, is the best. There's a couple of very major arcs, and that's why I don't want you looking at IMDb at all, because the problem is there's 2 episodes in this that are very big, and the image of the episodes and even 4 words of the description will just completely spoil it.
Right.
The whole build-up. This is the most crucial. The next season 6, it's a bit more weird and up and down. I would say don't look at them either, but season 6, it's not going to be any revelations for you. There's going to be a couple of cool episodes. You're like, wow, that's interesting, and that explains that lore. This season 5, this is the crucial one. This has got some very big hitters in it, what we're about to go into, some very big hitters. And I just don't want anything that is going to happen to get ruined. As again, everything up to this point has all kind of been a build-up. Season 5 for me is pretty much the ultimate payoff. And then there's some other stuff afterwards which kind of wraps things up in a way, but season 5 is the big one for me. But yeah, I mean, it's really interesting with... I love Kenobi, and I like his unbeatable spirit, and it's a lot like Spider-Man in a way, where it's like every time Spider-Man gets punched down, he just gets back up, and he makes jokes when he shouldn't, and he's just trying. And I feel like Obi-Wan as a character is kind of like a cross between Daredevil and Spider-Man. At least Daredevil I've seen the Netflix series. Because you've got this... He's dogmatic and he believes in his religion, which obviously Daredevil is Catholicism, whereas Kenobi is Jedi. But he's got the Clone Wars add a little bit of lightness, because Matt Murdock, when he's a civilian, he was a little bit witty, but he's not overtly funny. Whereas Spider-Man is like very jovial. And I think Obi-Wan in the Clone Wars kind of sits between them, where he's got the spirit of them both, where no matter how many times he gets punched down, he will get back up again. And we saw it in that slave arc, I think earlier in this season, where he was just getting wailed. He's just getting beaten up. And then he was like, come on, Anakin, do your thing. And then he's like, finally, I can get up and not have the crap beat out of me. But that's how I view Obi-Wan. I really like... It's a weird one, because I think it brings a lot of depth to his character, because when you see him, he does get beaten by Maul and Savage, but he's completely outmatched, and he doesn't spiral, whereas Anakin does that a lot. Like Anakin gets captured and he panics.
Well, I think that's because he realizes, yes, it's been... But this is the thing with Obi-Wan. It's like every time, he fights Dooku, he learns. When he fights, spoilers for Rebels, in case people haven't gone back and listened to Rebels that we've done. When he fights Maul at the end of there, he goes one way, and then he goes, hang on a minute. And he uses then the way Qui-Gon stands to know that, like, Maul's going to do this, and then he beats him. And that's the thing with everyone. He looks at stuff, he analyzes it, and he may have lost that battle, but then he'll go away, analyze it, and he'll do better next time. And he's very intelligent. He's very much kind of like, let's work out how are we going to win this war? And that we have to have a lot of little battles to learn the information, and then we can actually win the war. And that's what's good about everyone. He sees the bigger picture. It's not just a case of, we lost now and that's it, we're done for. It's like, okay, that's fine. I can learn from that. I know that they're here now. I can let everybody else know they're here now. Because I mean, it Maul's like when Savage kind of says to him, do we, do we go after him? He's like, no, no. He says, I've waited for ages for my revenge. I can wait a little longer. And he's like, the Jedi don't know about this. There's a count on it. And it's like, so Maul, this is what's good about Maul and Obi-Wan. They kind of are the same person to a certain degree. They're both very calculated.
It's
and
just Joker and Batman,
to do. Yeah, very much.
Very similar. Of like they've got a lot of similarities, and as you'll see that as these seasons unfold, with Maul being so central to a lot of it, it makes Obi-Wan become central because there's many times things happen. And Obi-Wan is like, that's my fault. There's a conversation, I can't remember when it happens or in what storyline or whatever, but there's a point I remember, which is Obi-Wan says something to Yoda and he's like, I need to go face Maul. He's my responsibility. I think he loosely says it in this, but he says at one point, he's like, he's my responsibility. And I think the other person's like, he's not, you took care of him, but you can't just take you can't just basically any person Maul murders is your fault. That's not. And so Obi-Wan, his storyline with Maul is so intertwined and it makes them both stronger characters because of it.
Yeah,
which I really, really like.
Well, he kind of runs with the guilt of he's lost his master because he wasn't able to kind of defend him, but 100%. Then he dealt with it. But now knowing that Maul's back, anyone else is like it's like the line in Infinite War with Thor. I should have aimed for the head.
Yeah,
he says this. I mean, this is before.
Oh yeah,
and that
yeah.
It's like I should have aimed for the neck, and that he knows that. Anything that Maul does now is his fault, and he has to deal with that. It is his responsibility.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of growing for everyone. It's one of the reasons why anyone who's watching the video version of this will be able to see next to me. I've got my Maul Funko Pop here, and this Maul Funko Pop is my favorite Maul, which is Maul with his I won't spin it around because there's stuff, but Maul with his like legs, or is it? So there are his mechanical legs. So this is Maul, not from Phantom Menace. This is Clone Wars Maul. And then my Obi-Wan that I've got, which is here, is Obi-Wan with his Clone Wars Obi-Wan. So he's got the Clone Wars armor on his arms, which the reason they did that is for animation reasons, because animating a sleeve flapping around is really difficult. But you put something on there that makes it static, and you immediately make that's why, all hair and stuff like that. In the first few seasons, it doesn't move. It's exactly, it's very cubey. Whereas in this one, Obi-Wan's getting beaten and his little flick of hair fringe comes down, when he's getting hit down. And there's little things like that, which I like. But my three favorite characters in Clone Wars is Obi-Wan, Clone Wars, Ahsoka, and then Maul. The three of them work together so well. So I want to ask, we'll start to wrap up. Is there anything else about either these 4 episodes or this season so far that we haven't really spoken about that you want to tackle?
I know that this season is where it kind of stepped up a bit in the design of it all, and you could, like I said, the bit where Robert Townsend gives him his legs back.
Yeah, you
can really see the fact that they've actually they've said to whichever designer this needs to look good, and it's just so it's one of those things. Maybe if it'd been episode, season 1. You can ask an artist to do something, and in 5-10 minutes, that they'll give you something. But if you turn around and say, right, you've got a couple of days to work on this, it's going to look so good. And I feel that they took a lot of time with this, a lot of care, because again, it's a good episode. It is a setup episode for what's to come, and that. But I suppose the more we've talked about this, the more I've kind of swung to a bit more of actually these episodes were a lot better than what I've given them credit for to start with. It is a big setup, but I feel that they really did take the time with the actual design of it all. And again, when we said about the Mon Calamari episodes with the water and the hue of being in the water, this the red, the dust red and the mist that's there. It must be quite hard to actually animate something and everything's kind of red, because that's on. Is it Valmir?
What Dathomir when they're on? Or you on?
Is it
Dathomir? Or when they're on Lothar Mine of the junkyard? What part are you talking about?
I thought where
Oh, at the end of Revenge when they fight with Ventress and
Yeah, because they're not
it's
on
called like
Dathomir.
it's called like it's like Radonian or something like that. I
Yeah.
remember seeing the name, but I was like, I don't recognize that planet, so I
Right.
didn't really make a note. But yeah,
Okay, so it's not like a major.
well, bouncing off what you just said, I was thinking of lighting is when Savage finds Crazy Maul, and his face gets lit up by the lightsaber and different lighting, and you can see like the craziness and his horns all big and all that. The way that all looks, it's very dark in places, but it's done so it's not like poorly made darkness so you can't see. It's like when you reference the Water War. It's like this season they've almost added layers of depth to the darkness, so you can actually see things a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more thought in the design to kind of really kind of to sell it, to give that dark presence to him, and that it's like sometimes if you put the hood on something and it kind of covers them, you can just see the eyes kind of glowing in the background. You think, this is menacing. This is, if anyone who isn't aware who Maul is, introducing him this way is like, this guy means business. He's a big bad. And that the crazy Maul with the kind of messed up horns, and that I like the fact that they kind of trimmed him down, and then he's like that original. And again, he has that presence. I'm really excited going forward because I think, yes, like Dave was saying, where he's rubbing his hands here, it's like, oh, it's going to kick off now. Knowing that he's there, I'm more invested and interested in seeing him than Dooku or Grievous or even Palpatine, because I just feel that they're there, but they just don't really get things done.
They're all kind of they're kind of place markers, aren't they? Because they're so limited because of what they do in Revenge of the Sith. You got a bit of Dooku stuff in the early days, but it's like there's only so many times you can have Anakin fight Dooku. Do you know what I mean? Yeah,
well, and you can't have Anakin fight Grievous because they don't meet. So you're kind of limited. Whereas I suppose in a way you bring Maul back, you can do what you want with him,
and they do.
And it's exciting to see what's going to come next, because I just feel that I'm not sure if they're going to be able to handle him. I won't be surprised if several Jedi get taken out, and that there may be Jedis that people may never have heard of before. But if you can show Maul just kind of taking names and that, the other thing I would say is I feel a bit sorry for Savage, because I think he's now going to take a big back seat to a certain degree. He's going to be there, but I just feel that whenever he's on screen, you'll be thinking, no, I want more. And if Maul's there, it's like, I'm not bothered about you because Maul's there.
Yeah, and I want to ask, with Maul, like with the image people will be able to see in the video versions, Maul looks the best in this Clone Wars from here on. He'll appear again, obviously, because no spoilers, but he appears in the next season. But when he does appear, there's a specific, and when we get there, I'll point it out. But there's a certain bit where he looks just very cool, and in the image you've got as your background, he just looks like so cool, because in Phantom Menace he's very much encloaked a lot of the time, apart from when he's fighting Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon on Naboo, and he's got something on his top layer, but he's much more, you can't see as much of his skin. But in this, he's very much more topless. He's more like he's more out there. He's almost more rabid, but he's also more controlled. He's got this air to him where he's more natural. He's less confined and constrained. And the how he looks in this, as much as I love Star Wars Rebels, I just think this is peak Darth Maul image, is that what you've kind of got there, and something that's come to the future, because he looks cool in Rebels, but he does look very withered and thin because of he's been on.
Do you feel that?
God knows how long.
It's like Dave mentioned it earlier. It's like that, when we're part kind of voice it. It's that Shakespearean thing. He has that kind of Shakespearean villain to him, hasn't he?
And he's got a posture when Witwer was voicing him,
which is a bit like with Tarkin. Tarkin, he's got no special powers, and even Thrawn as well.
Yeah,
there's no special powers there. It's just they hold themselves and they're confident and believe in what they're going to do, and that, to be fair, can be a bit more scary.
Yeah,
because they know their limits.
I think it's their presence, as you say, and I think with Tarkin, Thrawn, and Maul, they all have that thing where they have got the pride / arrogance, knowing that they actually have power, whether or not that's presence or what. Like, aside from Palpatine, they all know they're the most powerful. But even Maul says, in this episode, he goes, "My master was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy."
Yeah.
And so you're like, he's aware that aside from Palpatine, he's basically the top dog. Same with Tarkin, same with Thrawn. They're all in this space where essentially, as long as they don't piss off the Emperor, they can do what they want. And they know they're right. They know they're the smartest, if not one of the smartest in the room. And that's one thing the Clone Wars really develops. And I won't say anything else about it, but you really find out how intelligent Maul is throughout this journey. You get it a little bit here, and you do get it in Rebels. But Clone Wars is really where you get the most amount of substantial Maul content.
Yeah, 'cause I do wonder, because obviously he slept through 10 years. So I kind of just says, because he says, I feel there's an imbalance in the Force. And it's like, yeah, that's the Clone Wars. And obviously he doesn't know what Clone Wars is. He won't be aware of Dooku. He won't be aware of Grievous. Now, if Palpatine is, I'm sure Palpatine is probably aware. You're not going to say. I'm just wondering whether.
No matter where you're going with this, I'm going to do this just so you know. Just so I don't spoil anything. The where I can see the questions you want to ask, and I'm putting my arms up in a shrug because I can't.
But the thing is, that's why it's interesting, because in a way, I mean,
he's a wild card.
He's not. Yeah, he's not going to take any of them three out. Scar, they've got plot armor, but at the same point, I do worry. This is what I mean. I worry because I suppose this is why he's called Maul and he's no longer Darth Maul, because, like, he's not. I suppose he's not a Sith. He's not a Jedi. He's not anything like that. He's just Maul.
He's been thrown out, forgotten.
Makes him, although he's got the calm and collective, he's that caged animal. He's ready just to kind of go, and whoever gets in his way to stop him from getting Obi-Wan. And I do question, was there a point in his mind, or is there a point in his mind that thinks, Palpatine left me and never came back for me? Maybe we're gunning for him as well. But at the same point, he's aware that Palpatine is powerful, so it's like, I probably can't take him out. I don't know. But yeah, I just feel that we've got a real villain entered the room, and it's like, I'm you're worried for the other guys, because I just feel they're not ready for him.
Every episode that Maul's in gets elevated. And I think when you finish the series, you'll be going back to certain episodes. And someone's got a thing online that obviously don't look it up, because if you even breathe it online, you get spoiler city. But there's a chunk of episodes where you just string them together, and it's basically the Maul story of the Clone Wars, and it just works so well. But yeah, I'm super glad we kind of talked you around. You normally do that on other people's pods, normally on Back to the Filmography or something else. You're the one who talks people around. But this one, I think these 4 episodes, Bounty is the weakest one, but I think Massacre's fantastic, and I think Brothers and Revenge are really good. I may go back and watch Massacre again and just see. I would. It's a really good episode.
I think the thing is, I watched Massacre and then I watched the other 3 kind of together, and that's maybe because it did. But I mean, Bounty, I do feel, is the weakest of the 4.
Yeah, definitely.
And that it is that filler episode, and maybe because of what happens in episode 20. The Brothers one it's an alright, but it's a setup.
Yeah,
this one's really good. And this, again, it's a setup, but there is a bit of a payoff with it as well.
Yeah,
and that. So I think maybe because episode, Revenge was so good, it makes the others a bit kind of like, well, they're all right, but this is the one that we really want to talk about.
Yeah, because I'm just looking, and it is. So I can say the next episode you'll watch is another Maul episode. There's no way to hide it. As soon as the next episode clicks, the name of it, the description, everything. So you do get. It's almost like 3 episodes into the trilogy. Is Brothers, Revenge, and the next one, which is Revival, and then I'll say then there's a gap. So that the next episode you get when we're going to kick off season 5, it's with a Maul episode, and then it's another 4-parter. So almost all of season 5 is 4-parter arcs. So when we do the next season, it will be the Maul episode, which will be fun to talk about. Then one of the then a 4-parter arc, and then we'll stop after episode 5. Then there's a 4-parter arc, and then another 4-parter arc. So we'll do one episode tackling both of them. So not one each, but because One of those episodes is going to be the droid episode, which you already are peripherally aware of, which is Lucas's favorite one. 4 episodes, almost purely droids, almost no other characters in, was it? They're about 25 minutes per episode, give or take the intro bit and the outro. So it's like 22, 23 minutes times 4. That's about 90 minutes or so.
Is C-3PO in it?
I do not believe so.
Oh, might be all right then. I might be fine with it.
Yeah, he might be. I know. I'll say that R2 is in it. R2 is definitely in it, but I'm fairly sure that 3PO isn't. Or at least if he is, it's just him going, "Oh my god, where's R2 gone?" So he's not really, to my memory, he's not in it at all. But so what we'll do is we'll do the Maul one, the 4-parter. Then there's 2 4-parters. One I'm very excited to talk about. The other one is the droid one, unfortunately. Then we'll pause it there, and then it's going to be an amazing 4-parter and an amazing 4-parter. So an amazing 3-parter, then an amazing 4-parter. So we've got some cool stuff to go. Very cool stuff. There's a lot more to come of Clone Wars, but we are now in the pinnacle. Episodes like Krell, episodes like Brothers in Revenge, but the level of Krell, I would say at least 2 of the arcs in the next season are that good. I'd probably maybe say 3, but one of them I'm looking at and I remember the arc and I'm like, I do not remember it being a 4-parter. I remember it being a 3-parter. So I'm wondering if it's going to be a bit bloated. But we'll see about that. But is there anything else you want to mention before we wrap up here?
No, as I say, I think I've mentioned the things that, as I said, it's interesting because we don't have, we have several episodes with no Jedi, and then all of a sudden Obi-Wan comes in and it's pinnacle to it, and that is really good. But it's interesting. I'm excited to see where we go next, and that, as I say, knowing that Maul is now into the field, it's like, oof, I can't wait to kind of get my teeth into. The only downside is we're going to do 5 episodes, and it's like stop, no more.
You're going to be there's going to be bits with season 5 where you're going to be like, when can we record? I need to record. I'll double check my calendar as well because this is admin chat. But I'll see if any of us have the opportunity to do one more pod before I go away.
Obviously, you're going away in a couple of weeks. Is it 2 weeks?
It's 3 weeks. Tomorrow is my flight, so 3 weeks there I won't be able to. So the only time I'd be able to do it is 2 weeks today, either this time next week or the week after. So that's admin stuff. We'll figure out in the chat. But if we can, I'd like if we could try and do it in 2 weeks' time. If we can watch those 5, because then we'll watch those 5, and then you have 8 episodes to watch while I'm away. So you have. It won't be like, here's 3 episodes and then you have to wait a month. It will be at least you get a few. So that would be cool. But Maff, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, thanks to Dave. He had to shoot off. Obviously, thank you so much for, going on this journey. It's always fun. I love hearing your perspective and seeing on it. We're not going to agree on all the episodes, but that's the beauty of Star Wars. All of our movies of Star Wars are different, and all of our favorite movies of Star Wars are different, and all of our favorite episodes of Clone Wars and arcs and stuff are all different. There's going to be a couple which are quite undeniable. It's pretty hard to not love the Krell one, and there's a couple more coming up that are going to be like undeniably top tier, but it's the other ones I love hearing things about. So obviously I'll put links in the description. People can check out your appearance on Intercomic Spotlight, which was great fun, and then some of the other stuff that we've been up to. Is there anything else you want to mention before I say those magic words?
Nope, I think that's it.
Stellar. Well, thank you so much, Maff. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, the wonderful audience, for listening. Please make sure you comment on YouTube. Tell us what you thought. Like, subscribe, share. Follow us on social media at Genuine Chit-Chat. Follow Comics Emotion on social media. Stay subscribed wherever you are listening to this. It's on several feeds, and it will be... and there is going to be a lot more episodes to come. And fret not, we've got plans for after the Clone Wars as well. Well, I do, because I've seen it all, so I know where we can go. But friends, thank you so much for tuning in as always. And what else is there to say aside from, may the Force be with you.
And with you.